Hey guys, and welcome to the second video in my C++ tutorial series. So today we'll be going deeper into C++ and how to actually work with C++. Today we'll be focusing on IDEs, what an IDE is. We'll be installing our first IDE. We'll be going into detail with C++ basic functions, and basically by the end of this video, you will not only know how to start your C++ journey, but then you'll be able to write your first line of code, which will be the famous hello world code with C++. So buckle up and get ready for this ride. But before all of that, I'll briefly like to talk about programming languages and the types of programming languages we have and where C++ falls in the categories of programming languages we have. So basically, as I said earlier, programming languages are the way human beings, or us, the user or programmer, communicates with a computer and give it instructions. Now we have different types of programming languages that fall into three specific categories. We have interpreter languages, compiler languages, and assembly language. Okay, to understand this in more detail, see how human beings communicate with signs and symbols, or sometimes through oral statements, or even sometimes through written text. That's the same way computer programming languages can be broken down into three specific categories, as I already stated. Now, these specific categories are based on how the computer accepts the data in the form of programming language, or accepts the instructions, or how the computer perceives the instructions you are giving it. So, first of all, we'll start with interpreter languages. Now, think of an interpreter like a live translator in a meeting. Every time you see a sentence, it immediately translates and speaks it to the computer. It's flexible and easy, but sometimes slower. It's slower because the computer gets each statement as it is uttered. So let's say you say a sentence, it immediately gets translated, which prevents you from completing the entire idea and letting it be accepted into the computer. An example of programming language like this is Python and also JavaScript. They are both interpreter languages. Now let's move on to compiler languages. Now with compiler languages, imagine you hand over your entire speech to a translator. They work on it and then deliver it all at once, perfectly ready. That's a compiler. It takes your full program, translates it into machine code, and then the computer runs it very efficiently. Now, examples of compiler languages are C and C++, and because of its speed, that is why C++ is majorly used in big corporations even today. So C++ is an example of a compiler programming language. Now, the final programming language we have is assembly language. Now, assembly language is like almost speaking directly in the computer's native tongue, but with a few slight tweaks in execution. This is because assembly language really resembles machine language and needs to be interpreted using an assembler, which converts the assembly language into machine language. However, assembly language is extremely hard for humans to learn because it's made of mnemonics, which are numbers and symbols representing data. And all of that, trust me, can be very, very hard to study. And that's why other versions or generations of programming languages were introduced to make things run smoother and faster. Okay, so now that that has been established, we'll move directly to how C++ works on a computer. Basically, when you write a C++ program, the compiler takes the entirety of your code, turns it into machine language or machine instructions, and then the computer executes it. That fast and that simple. Well, to be very honest, it's not as simple as it seems, but that is why you are part of this tutorial series. And as we go on, I'll make C++ look as easy as learning normal ABC, or at least I'll try. Now, to start your journey as a programmer, we first need to establish what an IDE is. Now, an IDE simply means an integrated development environment. Now, you may be wondering what all of that is. In the lamest terms possible, I would say an IDE is basically an app that allows you to run code. That's the most simplest explanation I can give. But in detail, an IDE is basically like an environment or a setup which enables you to run code, write code, and execute code efficiently. It basically provides you with the tools necessary for debugging, for compiling, and for editing code in any which way you want to edit it. We have several examples of IDEs. We have code blocks, Visual Studio, C Lion, Eclipse, Xcode, and so many other IDEs. Now, because we are running C++, we'll be looking at the IDE code blocks, because for beginners learning C++, it is very efficient to use code blocks to run your code, because it is mainly tailored to support C and C++ programs. So today in this tutorial series, we are going to walk you through the journey in installing an IDE, which is code blocks. Okay, so to install code blocks on a Windows 11, you just move to any web browser of your choice and then type in code blocks in the search engine. After you are done typing code blocks in the search engine, the first thing you see is the code blocks link, and then you click on it. This should send you to the official code blocks downloading page. Now all you need to do is to scroll and look for the download section and click on download. After clicking on download, it will send you to a different page where you scroll and look for download the binary release and click on it. After you click on download the binary release, it will send you to a different page where you see Microsoft Windows 64-bit default. Note, I'm doing this in 2025, so the setup might be different for you based on the time you are watching this video. So basically, when we reach there, we'll scroll and locate the Microsoft Windows section, because we are downloading for Windows 11, and then we'll look for the MinGW setup. Now we want the MinGW setup because that's what our compiler is. It comes with a compiler, and that is what we'll be using for the C++. So we'll click on it, and that's the file we want to download, not the rest, just that. So after clicking on it, it will send you to a different page, and code blocks will automatically start downloading after the countdown. So you just wait for the file to completely be downloaded. Now, after the file has successfully been downloaded, you locate where it was downloaded and you click on Open File. Now, when you open File, this will give you a prompt that Windows is asking you if you want to install from unknown locations. So you just click on Accept, and code blocks will automatically start installing. Now, before the code blocks IDE can be successfully installed, you still need to click on some agreement prompts, and then it will safely be installed on your computer. So I'm going to go back a little so that you can see the prompts that we are accepting. So after accepting all of the prompts and clicking on the default location is supposed to be, don't change anything, just continue to accept the prompt until you reach the last point, and then click OK. Now, after accepting all the prompts, you just wait for code blocks to install successfully. After its installation, you just click on OK and then wait for the IDE to launch. So that is what you will do. Just follow what is on the screen. Okay, so if you followed the steps on the screen successfully, you would have finished installing code blocks. It should be on your desktop right now, and we will be launching code blocks. So we will launch code blocks, and I'll give you the rundown of how the interface of code blocks is and basically how you can start. So when we open code blocks, we are going to notice a page. The first page we see is called Start Here. It's basically the introductory page of code blocks and where everything gets started. So we are going to scroll and look for Create New Project. Then we'll click on Create New Project. After clicking on Create New Project, we'll click on Console Project, as you can see on the screen. And then we'll click on Go, and then we'll make sure the programming language we are using is C++. We'll also enter the name of the project we are doing. So I'm just going to enter the name of the project as my first code. That is our first code in this tutorial series. And then we are going to save it, which it will be saved to a default location. If you don't have any real strong reason to change the default location, just leave it as such. So after that, it will give us a blank page, and then we are going to click on the name of our file at the side here. We are going to click on main CPP, and then we are going to see our first code. Now, since code blocks is tailored to function mostly with C++, they will have already written the first introductory code. Here we have the skeleton of C++. In our next video, I'm going to go in detail about the skeleton of C++ and explain how the whole C++ program functions. But for now, we are going to learn how to run our first code, that is the hello world code, as you can see down there. And just for reference sake, you can notice we have the include IO string, we have the namespace std, we have int main, we have cout, and then the hello world statement we want to run, and then we have return 0 and the entirety of the C++ programming code. Now, in the next tutorial series, we are going to break down these individual components and express their importance, highlight their uses, and what they can do in a C++ programming language. But first, today, we are just going to see how we can run and compile our program in code blocks. So we are going to go straight to the menu, the file menu, and then we'll see a bunch of tools there. We are going to click on one tool. That tool is to build the C++ program. Now, as I said, C++ is a compiler programming language, meaning it has to be compiled first. So that's the function of the build tool right there. It compiles the C++, and then we'll check to see if there are any errors, if there's any problem with the code in general. If not, then we click on run, which is the icon or tool up there in the same menu. Then, as you can see on your screen, we have hello world displayed in command prompts. But then if you want to bypass all of this and just build and run altogether, then you just locate the build and run tool on the menu and click on it, and you should have the same results. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this video. Today we learned how to install an IDE. We learned what compiler programming languages are, what interpreter and assembly programming languages are. We saw the skeleton of C++ and how to run our first program in code blocks. So in our next video, we'll be going more into detail with C++. We'll really break down the structure of it, talking about every single thing you see here and its importance. And basically, the teaching and learning process will begin. So thank you very much for staying this long and watching till the end. If you have any questions, you can just comment in the comment section, like this video, and if you're interested in content like this, you can always subscribe and join me on my journey. My name is Lloyd, and it has been a pleasure speaking to you today. Have a nice day.